let's, Jerry, would you mind doing the roll?
Tape recorder is running.
Okay, so this is public hearing and on the application for 957 Grant Street. Jerry, would you do a roll call?
Sure. Del Teague.
Here.
Maria Vieira. Trina McKeever.
Here.
Gina Barros. Stephen Chesler.
Here.
Erin Drinkwater. Moisha Indig. Bozina Kaminsky. Abraham Leibovitz. Sante Maselli. Rabbi Niederman. Isaac Sofer. Robert Solano. William Vega.
Here.
Stephen Weidberg. Simon Weiser. Michael Andrews. Keith Berger. Corey Canton. Michael Kowachka. Katie Napolitarski. Allison Stone. We have 12 members present.
Okay. So, why don't we get started? Well, do we have, all right, we'll have the presentation now.
So that means I'm on?
It means you're on.
Okay. My name is, I'm sorry. My name is Emily Simons, and I am with the Law Office of Emily Simons, PLLC. I've been a land use lawyer for some 25 years. I was with city planning for 13 years and then went out to the private sector. And I do work in all the boroughs, and I do discretionary actions, as well as, you know, regular people who just want to know what they can build. Tonight, we're looking at a vacant lot at 957 Grand Street in Brooklyn, which is basically on a triangular shaped lot bordered by Catherine, DeVoe, Morgan, and Grand Street in the East Williamsburg section of Brooklyn. It's a very small vacant lot, 25 by 100. It's kind of an irregular shaped lot. And it is in an M11 district, so it needs to go to the BSA in order to get a variance for residential use. The applicant would like to build 8 units. There are 8 units. It's 40 feet high. And the units are 1-bedrooms. They're about 500 square feet each. The first floor is completely handicap accessible. The neighborhood is mixed and it's changing. To the south, basically to the west and to the north of this area, it's residential, and the neighborhood is becoming increasingly residential. One of the reasons the bordering buildings around 957 directly, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 almost identical 4-story residential buildings with 8 apartments or 7 apartments. The building is really not suitable for what we know as modern manufacturing. There's no ability to have a freight elevator. There's no way to get trucks in and out. And it's been vacant since 2013. These are all buildings that are quite old. And the applicant is seeking I'm sorry, do you have a question? The applicant is seeking a variance To put in the 8 units of housing. It'll be rental housing. We spoke today. He's probably going to charge about $1,600 a month for the units. The area is, as I said, becoming increasingly more residential. There are a lot of community facilities, schools, and churches. This is Brooklyn, and so I've come to the community board to answer your questions and to have you ask me anything more that you would like to know about the building. Again, it's 40 feet high. It's about 200 square feet in total, 8 units. There's a 30 to 40 foot square rear yard as required by zoning. Otherwise, it complies with zoning. Well, it complies with the equivalent R6. It is very similar to the line of buildings that that run from basically the middle of Grand Street to Catherine Street, and then north of Grand and Catherine to DeVoe. From DeVoe to Metropolitan, you've got residential, and then on Powers and going west, as I said, there's a very large multiple dwelling, and there's community facility use. So we believe that this building is appropriate for the neighborhood. The rents are affordable. They can be. I think that there's a need for housing that is not very expensive, and also that will be new. The construction will be brick and concrete, and we just I believe, but of course this is my client, I believe that this building is extremely appropriate for the site and is unfortunately inappropriate for what manufacturing is today. It's just too small. People don't use 25 by 100 foot buildings without freight elevators, with no way to get in and out, to do modern kind of manufacturing. They need large floor plates. They need a way to get up and down. They need a way to get in. They need loading docks. And this building is totally inadequate for that kind of use. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Yeah, I do. Do you not have like maps or renderings of what
I'm sorry, it's a little hard to hear you.
Do you have a map and or renderings of the proposed?
I don't, I'm sorry. I would have liked to have renderings. We were not asked by the BSA to have a rendering, but, and I was only informed, I think on Thursday, before the July 4th weekend, they said if there could be a rendering, and the architect could not produce a rendering in time to, I have a land use map here. I don't know if, is there any way to make me bigger? And to show the land use map?
if people click on the stack view, then to get a close-up view. It's
Can
still
people
kind of
do
hard
that?
to see what's going on there.
Yeah.
I can share land use map if you want, if that can help.
Yeah, that would be great. I know that you have that. And you also have photographs of the surrounding area that was sent in my package, my original package from the BSA.
Do we have those photographs? Where are they?
They're in the BSA application. There's a set of photographs of the building, of the surrounding buildings. Yes. No, that's not the building. That's a large building, but I'm sorry, I couldn't do the shares in time. I sent over today some photographs, which I think will give you an idea of this is, if you can take, this is that's, I guess that's an Oasis map, but this is if you can show, is it possible to show, this is the building itself, surrounding buildings. This is the gap where there is no building, and you can see the surrounding buildings are basically all of the same height and all of the same type.
I just went on Google Maps
Yeah.
and Street View, and to the left of those two other buildings, there's another vacant lot, and to the right of that space, about 4 buildings down, is a whole bunch of commercial, looks like commercial spaces.
Yes, there is. There's no doubt that there is some commercial. They're not really manufacturing. They're very small commercial buildings.
If I
And this,
understand, M1 is potentially be offices and light manufacturing, right? M11?
Yeah.
Current?
well, I
Exactly.
suppose that there, the thing is that prior to the this is not prior to the COVID epidemic, people were looking for offices, and at this point, we have there's a lot of vacant offices, and the light manufacturing, even light manufacturing needs loading docks. They need to be able to get in and out easily. It just is not really appropriate even for light manufacturing, and the need for office use has greatly diminished throughout the city, and we are finding there's an awful lot of vacant space. So residential use is probably the highest and best use for this particular building. And given the surrounding buildings and the neighborhood that's to the west, to the north, and expanding out, it's becoming much more of a residential neighborhood. So I think that the 8 apartments are appropriate for this building, rather than to try and put in offices that probably aren't necessary, or to put in manufacturing that can't be well served in this particular location.
So I drove over to the site.
Yes.
During the day. I was curious to see what the activity was there, and it seemed to me that it was a pretty busy enclave of light manufacturing, commercial, industrial businesses. Now, you don't see it in the picture we just saw, but directly across the street from this lot,
There is,
it's just it seems to be a bustling enclave of industrial businesses. And it is also true that that right adjacent to this lot, there is some residential development on the ground. I think many of the buildings that have, not all, but some of the buildings, even the buildings that have residential, seem to have a commercial, businesses on the ground floor. Not all of them.
not,
So it is true that there are several 4 or 5 story residences on the block that this lot is on. So,
I mean, as of, yeah. I'm
but
sorry.
it seems to me that these other, but it just seemed to me that the businesses across the street and in the area were viable businesses. Now, I have no information about their finances, so I don't know about that, but
I don't either. I mean, I have a picture dated April 3rd, 2021, and 2 doors down, there was a commercial space on the ground floor. It's vacant and has not been leased. So it is mixed, but this particular building here is like a gap tooth, and to put up a manufacturing building in this tiny space is financially, if you went through the financials, it doesn't make much sense. It doesn't give a large return on the residential, but it gives a negative return as a manufacturing or as a manufacturing building. So
Why does it give a negative return?
because they can't charge any rent because of the kind of floor plates, and because of what can go in there.
You mean it would be less than residential?
Excuse me? I'm sorry. I
Never
didn't
mind.
get-
Never mind, that's okay.
Okay. And I think that a similar residential building with reasonable rents in this area being being adjacent to the growing residential population would be an asset to the neighborhood, rather than having a gap tooth here that is not. It's been available, but it has not been. There's been no interest in building from the ground up a manufacturing or an office building. So the building next door to it, to the so that's north, south, east. I'm sorry, my
Del, I just had
I'm sorry.
a couple of comments when
The building
appropriate.
right to the east of it was done a few years ago, 955, the board approved it for a 4-story. And it's actually quite quite a handsome looking building. And it was converted and fully occupied quite quickly. This building does not, it has 4 floors of residential. It does not even have commercial use in the ground floor.
So Rob, you wanted to say something?
Just a couple of points of clarification, right? One, the building to the left of this lot is a rent stabilized, and with the recent passage of rent laws, it would be a forever rent stabilized building. So it is technically residential, but what type of residential matters, right? So that's a residential building to the left. There's a landlord that has to abide by rent stabilized laws for the life of that building and has to provide what would be real affordable housing for long-term residents. As much as the intent of your landlord would be to try and to manage at a lower and a more appropriate affordable rent, there's nothing preventing this landlord from selling or hiring the rent. So as much as the intent is there, I do want to make clarification. There's a difference between the large residential building to the left that is abiding by rent stabilization laws, and there's nothing that can be done about it other than amazing long-term residents get to stay in the neighborhood. Second, there's a reason why this thing is M11, right? There's a reason why you have that rezoning, that zoning attached to it. Across the street, it is a bustling commercial zone. And third, I also think the intention of a landlord of purchasing a piece of property in 2013, it isn't as he is the original owner since 1962, has been struggling and for 30 years tried to figure it out. 2013 is a recent purchase. You knew what you were buying. You knew the zoning you were buying it for. You knew the use that you would probably get for it. You can see across the street the type of usage. So as much as we want to be supportive to the economy, I believe that we're not in the business of profiting an individual owner. We're in the business of how to improve the community, right? So either it stays the way it is, you make that work, or you can call HPD and enter into an affordable housing program, come back here with a 100% affordable housing project, and then that, I think, will get rave reviews from this community board. So I think to come here and say, hey, we're trying to make this work, it's mostly residential, it's partially true. But the only thing we would really be benefiting is the landlord, right? We would only be giving you that equity on a piece of property that was purchased for $350,000. So you bought a piece of property in 2013 for $350,000. You can easily rent that out and get back a nice return back and use the current as a right as what you purchased. To come here and ask for a windfall more, I don't think is appropriate request for a BCA. That's just my take.
So I think, let me
Can
just say,
I-
that it seems, let me just say something and then we'll move on. It seems to me that one of the issues we will deal with here tonight, and it's something that we've been talking about for a while on this, in this committee, is whether we want to protect our manufacturing zoning or whether we don't care about it, and or if maybe we care about it, but if something is presented to us that we clearly feel is worth giving up that manufacturing zoning on a particular parcel, then maybe we do that. So either do we want to, do we feel that this community will benefit from preserving the M11, and if we feel that is a value to the community, under what circumstances would we want to give it up? And you know, my sense here is we'd be giving it up here for something that will certainly be more profitable to the landlord. I don't know that this is enough benefit to the community to warrant letting go of the little manufacturing we have. And I was a little surprised that when I went down there, because it's really a bustling commercial, kind of light industrial commercial area.
I think that one thing I can say is if you look at the zoning, I mean, if you look at the size of the manufacturing, you'll see that the frontages are 125, 50. There's nothing that's 25 feet anywhere. You have 195. You have large 175, 275. You have really large manufacturing buildings that are across the street and are on the block. And I can understand what you're saying, that you want to preserve manufacturing, but this building is really not appropriate, in my opinion, at 25 by 100 for a manufacturing use, when you have these much, much larger buildings that are far more capable of putting in loading docks or freight elevators as renovations. And I think that actually it would be beneficial. I don't think that the building that's the rent stabilized is a very old building. And I think that the other buildings that are manufacturing are definitely appropriate for, because of their large size, they can handle the modern manufacturing. A building 25 by 100 in many communities, in Dumbo, in various other communities, is just not viable. If you go to DeVoe, you'll see the buildings are all 25 by 100. If you go, if you continue to go to the west, you're going to find lots and lots of 25 by 100 buildings that are that will provide housing, and housing is really needed in this community and in other communities. And I think that it's a very reasonable it's a reasonable site, it's a reasonable rental, it's I think that the landlord did not buy it to make a huge profit. He is not going to be making a huge profit, but he tried to, he's been advertising it. Nobody has had any interest in it. And that's why he went to the BSA to ask to match the residential buildings that were adjacent on both sides and to the north, so that he could fill in the gap tooth with basically, it's market rent, but it's an affordable market rent building.
It is a more affordable rent than we see in many other places. Again, it's, I think, the issue we're dealing with here is how important or how precious is the M11 zoning to the community. Sante, did you say you wanted to say something?
Yes, I'd love to, if I'm not interrupting you when you're ready.
Not interrupting me.
Interrupting me?
Okay, Miss Simon, unfortunately, I wish I didn't know very well not only 957 Grand Street, but also 561 Grand, also 344 DeVoe Street. I wish I didn't know the original owner of all those three property, Florin Carmocano, which had a company, was doing business as Ameron. They actually manufacture stuff for me in the past. I believe he retired now. He states in his LinkedIn, American Dream Achieved. And in 2019, I put a link before. It's Corcoran Real Estate and the website. The property is being sold at 961 Grand Street, of which this property, together with the Florin Carmocano, as Robert Solano has said, sold for a modest amount of money I don't know too if it's another family member, because many family members were listed in this property for $350,000, which seems to me is below, even in 2013, below market value for the lot. But most important, because it seems this is misleading, and I believe this committee is very knowledgeable about not only our community, but also about the zoning and what industrial zoning are. I myself, just 1 block away, I've been around that block for about 15 years. I didn't own a space, but I rented an industrial space for about 15 years, an M1 space, very valuable. It gave me tremendous opportunity, and so space of 2,000 square feet that can be built on the entire lot, can be built for a certain number of floors. They are extremely valuable, and they don't need loading docks. There is so many a variety of business that are not necessarily classified as industrial business, but they need an industrial zoning, and especially they need the buffer zoning, the transition from the residential into the M3 zoning, just 2 blocks away down on Grand and Morgan and Vanderbilt. So this lot had a function. This lot actually was used for the delivery. This lot was used together with the 961 and 344 DeVault, which has double entrance. And I invite you, committee member, to click in the link that I put in the chat just at the beginning of the meeting of Corcoran to see, and this is something that is going to come again, is just next door. So the building is going to come soon to our committee for some kind of rezoning, but that was an active industrial zoning. You can see the picture in the Corcoran link of how the industrial space from DeVault to up to 561, and includes also the 957 lot, which was used by Ameron for delivery, for outdoor fabrication, and Florian Carmocano knew very well, and those 3 lots function all together. I wish Carmocano have not sold the lot separately, because there was maybe need some cash, whatever. I wish it had combined together with all the property, because the lot was meant probably to be together with the 561 and with a 344 DeVault. But because of speculation, it's been broken down. And I believe for $350,000, there is so many things that still can be very profitable. And honestly, as a committee member of this committee, I do not care about that. I care about that M11 zoning is extremely valuable for the community. And honestly, I don't even put that behind even the need for an affordable house, because there is a reason if we have an M11 zoning, which we don't have it anymore. And this committee has seen so many applications these last couple of months in a 500-foot radius from this hamlet of industrial zoning is left in the community. They want to obliterate M11. Personally, I'm against, but I want to tell the story, because I wish I didn't know the people that own it, the business that were run there, how this lot and the property from DeVault and 561 and 961 Grand function all together. Now they split it because of speculation. Well, that's their business. I don't think it's our business to allow them to make more money or to make more profit at the residential. They're not appropriate. The lot is an M11 zoning. And honestly, historically, those industrial zoning always have been a sort of a mix compound of residential, and the historic fabric tells ourselves that that's the history. They've always been together. Now we want to say they have to be all residential, but predominantly are industrial.
Well,
I invite you, committee member, to go, and also Miss Simon, I invite you to go probably on site and go in the Google map, and also visit the link from Corcoran that I put in the chat, because you'll see how the factory was active and very well functioned together. And the building seems to be residential, and 961 just next in that door, that was the office of the fabrication business that was occupying even 957 Grand. That was the okay. It looks residential. It was a part of that industrial building with different uses, with office, even with the gym downstairs.
961, I know what you're talking about because I did the research. 961 is residential. It's been residential for almost 100 years. It is attached for some peculiar reason to the building on DeVoe, but that small building on 961 has been residential. I am not in disagreement with you about preserving our manufacturing in New York City. In fact, when I was at city planning, I was a tremendous advocate for preserving manufacturing in the city because I think it's something that's desperately needed. And as you know, the areas in Red Hook, all over New York City, all the M1s are being rezoned to and city planning has been allowing the rezonings to residential use because you get a better return from a residential use.
We understand you get a better return. I mean, that goes without saying. That's why the owner is making this application. The question we have to answer is whether we want to give up yet another M11 site. I will say that there have been times when recently we had an application for a residential building where literally everything in that whole area, anywhere near the lot, was residential. There was no commercial or manufacturing right in the vicinity of that building, and we did get some some conditions for lower rents from the landlord, and we reluctantly agreed to have the rezoning. I will say this is, if you go down to that area, this is not that kind of an area. So I think somebody else might want to say something. Corey, did you have were you raising your hand?
Yeah, thank you, Del. So I am also familiar with the area, and it is pretty mixed. And also, once you hit Morgan, it's absolutely industrial. So, I think there's a couple of things at play, most of which has already been said by you guys. But one thing I wanted to note from a real estate perspective, and Del just said it, which is obvious, that residential values are higher. And in order for us to keep any level of commercial space, those values need to be lower. And so I think, Rob, who's nodding his head, said this earlier, but, since the owner of this site bought it in 2013 for $350,000, which, is very, very, very low for, what is it, a 25 by 100 lot. That's extremely cheap. So I think that in order for us to even have industrial spaces, we need the market to dictate what an industrial space can afford in order to exist. And so if we allow for rezonings, even if the site is small, I think that, that's the onus on the purchaser to assess whether or not that purchase makes sense for the zoning. And I think, because this is, as mentioned, happening all over the city, this board, and I would imagine many others across the city, are looking at it and saying, hey, wait a second, like, we want to have some industry, and the onus is on the purchaser to make a purchase that has a balance sheet that makes sense for the zoning. But also, I think that, it's a greater question for us. It's a greater question of what do we want the end of Metropolitan and Grand to look like? Do we want to keep that commercial space? And if we do, then we have to dig our heels in, even if it's at the expense of this particular owner who may not be able to make a profit on it. But in order to keep the land values at a level at which we can do commercial in the city, then I think that's what needs to happen.
Well, yeah, I mean, in respect.
I have to let some of the other board members speak.
Okay.
May I speak?
The other committee members speak.
I'm sorry.
May I speak, Del? William Vega?
Yes, of course.
It's just that Metropolitan and Morgan, this is the history of being industry. That's what they invented air conditioning. The name of the company was Carrier. They were a printing company, and because of they did high-end printing during the summer months, their paper were full, or it's just etc. So these wonderful Brooklyn Nights created a way to keep that work area cool, and that became air conditioning. I'm just saying that is the history of this area, industrial innovation. I mean, and we're still doing it here in North Brooklyn. So, yeah, that is industrial. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I will.
Katie,
Man, that
Katie,
was
you
a
were gonna
really
say
good fact.
something?
That was really good. I don't know. I was pretty happy. William, were you around when that happened? When the air conditioner, and you were around and they showed you the air conditioner?
No, I just like to read up on our neighborhood, and I'm always impressed. Like Cooper's Park, that was the glue factory for Cooper. Pencils, porcelain, you name it.
Knew that
It
one.
was done here
Yeah.
in Williamsburg and Greenpoint. I'm
Props.
just saying that area. I also, since I was going to bring up to Dell, maybe we should get a landmark, plaque put in there, because after this heat wave we're having, I think there should be a recognition of that. But again, this is getting off topic. But I encourage everybody to learn more
on
of our
topic,
history.
William. You're on topic. I think you're on topic, man.
Yeah,
That is a great. I'm gonna stop talking. That's a great
Yeah,
factoid.
wait, Katie Napolitowski, you've had your hand raised for a while here.
I agree with what Sante said, Corey said, Rob said. The only thing I'd like to add is not that it's kind of a moot point, but it's not what was proposed is not guaranteed affordable. And it's not guaranteed that it would be 600, 1,600 either. I just want to add that. I also want to reiterate that this is light manufacturing, not heavy manufacturing industry. And also just to say, as Corey said, we need to preserve this cluster of manufacturing. And so we cannot set a precedent by turning this into residential. And I agree with everything else everybody's the community said so well.
I think that I see where the land use, but you do realize that I am not asking for a rezoning. The M11 will stay, the M12 will stay. It will not be, there is, that is not going to be changed. The only thing that's going to be changed is this one small site to make it residential to match the area, the buildings that are right near it, and north of it, and growing east of it. South of it, there is some residential, and the M12s, the buildings are much, much larger. There's no way that I am asking, and I don't believe that we should lose manufacturing. There is not, this is not a request for a rezoning. This is a request for just a variance on this small building in order to not just to give the landlord a windfall, but to basically to fill in an area that is not been, nobody has had any interest in making in purchasing this for manufacturing use, for adding it to I guess it's 350 DeVoe that you were talking about, that belonged to the family that's no longer there. But I think that this is a very reasonable use for this one site. I don't think you're really losing your manufacturing in your M11, and certainly not in your M12 across the street. I think I would wish that the committee would really take a look at what makes sense in this line of buildings, and to put a manufacturing building in the middle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 residential buildings just doesn't make sense at this point.
But go on record, since this is recorded, just to say that I do believe that there is light manufacturing, which would be valuable, useful, and doable within this site. And I think that that's probably, I just want to counter that with my own opinion. So.
Also, I have a conspiracy theory is that, say, this variance was granted And then you have 961, which is connected to the much larger lot at 350. That 350, 961 will seek a variance, and they can build a really nice big market rate complex on 350 DeVoe, and then, there you go. Just kind of.
Well,
and so-
955 and 951 are far more recent conversions that were done to permit residential use in these small areas. The 961 is a very, very old building. All of these buildings are 100 years old at least, and were all manufacturing for over 100 years. So it's not as if they were newly introduced into this neighborhood. I can see the way the community is moving, and it makes me unhappy. I think that the M12, the M11s that are there, that are large, that are capable of even light manufacturing, will stay. Nothing's going to change. This is just one building that has not been able to be sold for either light manufacturing or any other kind of use. And that is why the owner came to me to get a variance, not a rezoning of any of the area, so that the vacant parcel could be filled in, and we could have some, basically, we're not talking about, but for reasonably affordable housing in 8 units. And I would like you to, I mean, I can see the way you're moving, but I would really like you to think about, I'm not asking to change the M11 or the M12. They're there, they're large, they belong there. I don't think that at 957, a manufacturing building in the middle of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 residential, all the entire corner basically of Catherine Grand and DeVoe is, and part of DeVoe is residential. When you get above DeVoe, between DeVoe and Metropolitan off of Catherine, you're all residential. When you cross the street, you're all residential. And
Madam
I
Chair,
don't think
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this selective viewing of maps is not appropriate. If you look to the right, and anyone in this call, we live here. So you doing the visual for, we all walk that and drive our cars through that. That is heavily manufacturing, the entire area around it. So this like runoff of like resi. I can go to the right and go commercial, all the way to the bridge. So I let me finish, please,
Sure.
because to just keep hitting me with selective facts is not accurate, right? You have commercial, a little resi, a rent stabilized building, a smaller commercial, then a lot, then a lot, then a lot. If you look at the sequence, you were supposed to be a lot because you are a lot. If you look at the sequence of lot, resi, lot, resi, lot, you were supposed to be a lot. You're a lot. So it is not our fault that you now have to go to the BSA, explain hardship. I don't know how you explain hardship. You didn't buy the lot for $1 million. You bought the lot very low. If you do apples to apples, you could rent that lot and make a modest return on a lot. Right across the street, there's 3 other garages that have similar sizes to this lot that are thriving and that are working. Are they making millions of dollars? No, they have jobs that provide manufacturing jobs or provide workforce for the community that they work. That's as simple as the way it works. Not every site is supposed to make you a millionaire. You have to go to work, you have to work really hard, and you have to provide jobs for the community. This site is not a hardship site. You bought it really low. I do not see the value for the community. And for you to continue to run off, oh, it's residential. I don't think anyone in this call is going to believe that this site is surrounded by residential. It's
Yeah.
surrounded by
Can
commercial.
I compliment Robert's comment, because I tried to say.
Wait, Michael Kowachka hasn't spoken and he just raised his
Oh, I
hand. so
apologize.
let him say that.
I just wanted to say that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.
So a question for the applicant. What was the subject property? What was it last used for actively? What was its last active use?
For almost 100 years, it was used as residential.
There was a house there?
Yes, there was a 4-story building. It was demolished. It was part of a set of residential buildings. It has been traditionally for over 100 years residential.
Okay.
I'm not trying to.
Why did you choose to demolish it?
It was unsafe. And they demolished it.
How long ago?
And I believe it was sometime between 1981 and 1982. The building was demolished. But before that, for almost 100 years, it had been part of a residential group.
So since 82, was it a parking lot? Has it been used as?
It hasn't been used as anything.
Just vacant dirt.
That's not true,
That's
Michael.
not true. Santi just said what it was used for.
But I don't know. I said that I gave a particular history. I said 344 Divo, 961 grand, and 957 grand were owned by Florin Carmocano, that ran the business as Amaron. The space was used actually for delivery, for fabrication, to park their truck, and to complement what Robert Solano just said. The lot was a lot because the lot are accessory to manufacturing. You know, you have vehicle, you have delivery, you have like steel in that case, but somebody else could have other material. Maybe even more beneficial to have an open space than not to have an indoor space. So he was complementing the industrial, being an industrial lot, still could be important in the future if hopefully somebody is not going to seek for a rezoning or for some variance, and 961 grand, as I'm assuming they will do, may become very feasible for a property that still could operate as an M11, as an M12, because they could provide a lot that is actually, it's a communicated lot with the back of DeVos Street. That's what I feel, but we stay here for hours talking again about something that
I guess we're saying the same thing over and over.
Trina?
I have a question. You said that the owner had been trying to sell it unsuccessfully as it's manufacturing. Is the owner looking for the variance and then he's going to sell it, or is the owner looking to develop it himself?
No, the owner is developing it himself.
And would he consider working with HPD and making it permanently affordable? Instead of just saying that he will make that he's going to offer affordable rents, would he actually work with the city and turn it into actual affordable housing?
Well, I certainly can speak with him about that.
That's all.
Do we, are there any more questions? Because we have to then end this public hearing and then we have to have our committee meeting and come up with a recommendation. Jerry, apparently no one else from the community has signed up to speak. Is that right?
I see no one in the chat or the participants that requested to speak. No.
So perhaps we can end the public hearing at this point if there are no objections, and then we can just start our committee meeting.
Now,
I second that.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm not permitted. The committee meeting, I have to leave, right?
Do we have quorum?
No, no, you don't have to leave.
Oh,
The
okay.
committee meeting is always open to the public.
Okay.
Do we have quorum?
I think so. We have had, as far as I know, we have quorum. We've had it up till now.
Okay. In the event that I get cut off, because I have 17% and I'm on the road.
Okay.
Don't have
Do you
my
have any
charger.
thoughts about this, Maria?
Listen, my thoughts are that they knew what they were doing when they bought it. I guess they had a long-term vision. They felt that they could come at some point to request exactly what's being requested. So it's either up to the community board now to decide that they want to give them a pass or not.
Why don't we, Jerry, do we have to do another roll call to convert to the committee meeting?
You don't have to. I mean, I'm looking at the screen. It looks like everyone's still here.
Why don't we
It's-
just do that then?
It's up to you if you like.
No, because I don't want to lose Maria if I can keep her. All right, here we go. This is now the committee meeting. I think that the majority of people who've spoken are in favor of rejecting the application because of the need to preserve our manufacturing. Trina, you did raise the question of whether they would work with HPD to convert it to permanently affordable. Of course, this is on a clock. I mean, I'm wondering, do we want to? It seems to me that the majority of people here are in favor of rejecting. I mean, I suppose I don't know if anybody would be interested in rejecting the application, but being willing to reconsider if they were to work with HPD to convert it to permanently affordable. But I don't know that that's really workable or doable, especially since this is on a clock. And I don't know that even at that, we want to give up the manufacturing classification. It just seems to me that this committee has committed to trying to preserve what little light manufacturing we have. So.
May I speak, Dale?
Yes, of course.
If the applicant had come to us and tell us they're going to work with HPD from the initial, then I would be rethinking about this. But had to be brought up by Trina. I vote to reject because we have to protect the little light manufacturing we have. Thank you.
I second the motion from William Baker.
Okay, so let's vote. Roll call
Also,
vote.
just to say that I just checked some of the tax block photo. In 1981, it was an empty lot. I can check the 1940 photo to see if it was an empty lot in 1940. So, you know, just to have a little bit more knowledge.
Thank you. Motion on the floor.
Okay, so let's start voting. The motion is to deny the application. And Jerry, would you do a roll call vote?
Sure. Delty,
Okay, so we're voting to deny.
And
So-
are we adding and to preserve the industrial zoning of that cluster
There's a motion.
for the future?
Well,
The
it's not
motion is
rezoning.
that's what we're voting on. The motion is to deny the application to convert it to from M11 to R6. So
No, it's not a conversion, it's just a variance.
A variance,
They
yeah.
still
variance.
The
retain
motion is
the
to
M1
deny
zoning.
you're right. The motion is to deny the variance.
So yes is to deny.
So a yes means we're denying. So I vote yes.
Maria Vieira,
Yes.
Trina McKeever,
Yes.
Gina Barros, Stephen Chesler,
Yes,
Aaron Drinkwater, Moisha Indig, Ozana Kamensky, Abraham Leibovitz, Sante Maselli,
Yes.
Rabbi Niederman,
Yes.
Isaac Sofer,
Yes.
Robert Solano,
Yes.
William Vega,
Yes.
Stephen Weidberg,
Yes.
Simon Weiser,
Yes. Yes.
Michael Andrews,
Yes.
Keith Berger, Corey Canton,
Yes.
Corey Canton.
She said yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Michael Kowachka,
Yes.
Kate Naplatarski,
Yes.
Allison Stone, (15) in the affirmative, 0 no, 0 abstention. Motion carries.
So, thank you, everybody. Really, you're just the best. So I guess we'll see each other on the 12th.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful
Thank you,
day,
Daryl.
everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
Bye-bye.
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 Bye.
Bye. Good, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.